Hello, good evening,
Hi,
good
Fulvia.
afternoon, everybody. Hello, hi Sharon,
Hello, Fulvia.
and for the friends in America, happy Thanksgiving Day. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Spiritual Chat Show with me. Hello, Kiwisi, thank you for joining us live. And this evening I have hello, Sunshine. Hello. This evening, I have with me Sharon Mabey, and Sharon is from the UK, in from the Midlands, Rugby, and I'll tell you a little bit about Sharon right now. Let's wait while I talk. Let's see who if someone else joins. How are you this evening, Sharon?
I'm really well, thank you, Fulvia. Yeah, really well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine.
Good.
Glad to hear. Hello,
Yeah.
Maria. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Hello, Julie. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about Sharon, and then if Sharon wants to add a little bit more, um, she will, I guess. Okay. Hello, Teresa. Thank you for joining us. And Elaine, thank you for joining us. Okay, Sharon maybe is a spiritual medium and healer, and she's based in the UK. She serves spiritual churches across the Midlands, and Sharon also runs a development circle in a church in Rugby. She has trained at the renowned Arthur Findlay College. Hello, Angel. Hello. Under the guidance of some of the world's best mediums. Sharon is also a yoga, mantra, and meditator teacher, and she integrates this spiritual knowledge in her work as a medium. Currently, um, Sharon is also training as a trauma in informed somatic counselor, and later on, she will give us a taster of what this is. And she brings a compassionate approach to her mediumship, and ensuring that each message is a healing experience, not only for the medium, but most of all for the recipient and the loved ones in spirit. Thank you again, Sharon, and thank you for being here with me. Is there anything else you would like to add to your bio that maybe I didn't say?
I think you did a really good job there, Fulvia. I think you covered most of it. And we met
Oh,
quite a few years ago, didn't we? I don't know if you remember, but originally it was on one of
yes,
Stockwell's online courses. I think it might have been a
yes,
coach weekend.
exactly,
And then we met at the college as
exactly.
well, didn't
Yes, I was getting that
we?
actually. Okay, for all those who are watching the live, and will be rewatching the recording. I met Sharon first online, and she's a magnific spirit artist as well. I mean, if you look at her drawings, remember the first time we practiced when she showed her drawing. I was okay. I'm going. She's very good. She's very good. My gosh. And then we met at the Arthur Finlay College. Which course was that, Sharon?
It was the Spirit of Summer, I think, wasn't it? With Tony Stockwell.
Yes, it was. The Spirit
I
of
think it was
Summer with
in
Tony Stockton.
August 23. It was a couple of years ago, but we didn't know
Yes,
we were going to be on it, did we?
yes.
So it was kind of a nice surprise to meet you in person.
No, no, actually, I remember when I arrived, you came, and I saw you. I was, oh my gosh, you're here. Um, and yes, and then we met in person, and I can't say enough about Sharon, seriously. But let's start with our talk, with our chat with Sharon. Um, when I got in touch with Sharon and I asked her what she wanted to choose as, her subject, what knowledge she wanted to bring, she told me that she wanted to talk about yoga, and I was, I heard of it, but I didn't know that there are some yoga practitioner that become aware of spirit through this practice. And I'm really happy that Sharon is bringing this and sharing this knowledge with us all this evening. So Sharon, when did you start practicing yoga?
So I didn't start practicing yoga until 2016, which um, was quite late on actually in my life. I was about 38 at the time. So when I was young, my mum used to practice, and it was back in the 80s. And back then, it was very different from what we know today. It was quite a long experience, and people would take towels or sleeping bags. They wouldn't have the yoga mats, and every once a week, she'd just disappear for a couple of hours and go and do this thing called yoga, which just sounded so exciting. Um, and then she'd come back and she'd show me a few things that she'd been doing, but it was a lot of breath work and kind of rolling her belly muscles and doing a bit of balancing. And to me, it was just like magic. So I always grew up with kind of I was intrigued by yoga. But then it kind of died off a little bit, especially in rugby. There wasn't many places you could go and practice. But I did find a class in a gym and I'd dip in and out. But then in 2008, so when I was 30, I was actually diagnosed with a condition called Ehlers-Danlos mobility disorder, which means that I have a deficiency in my collagen. So anything that has the connective
I
tissue,
see.
so things like joints, skin, um, anything that has collagen within it, it doesn't have the elasticity, so you can overstretch. So one of the things that I was told in 2008 by the physiotherapist and the consultant was, whatever you do, you mustn't do yoga. So I kind of thought, oh well, that's
I
the end of
see.
my yoga career, and I sort of put it to the back of my mind, and I didn't really think anything else of it. I tried lots of other things. It just nothing was really working for me. So I was on a lot of medication at that time to try and help with the inflammation and the pain, and just trying to help me sleep at night because I'd been in so much discomfort. And really sadly, my dad passed away in 2014, and it was a real shock to my system because we weren't expecting him to go. And
Yeah,
it was kind of at that point I started to get really, I didn't feel anything for a long time. I was quite numb. And then I felt really emotionally overwhelmed. And I went to the doctor for help at that time, and they wanted to put me on antidepressants. And I thought, that doesn't really seem right because I'm grieving. I've got a lot of stuff to process. I'm grieving. I don't need to be on any more medication. And my dad's mum, my grandma, was still alive at the time. And I'd go and visit her, and we'd sit and have coffee, or I'd do a little bit of housework for her and we'd chat about things. And she'd had a clear out, and one of them was a really old yoga book. And it's almost like my eyes just kind of landed on it. And she said, "Oh, do you want it? Would you like to take it?" So I took it home, and it felt really intuitive, Fulvia. I just started sort of practicing from
yeah,
the book. Um, And of course, I was very flexible because I've got hypermobile joints, and I was getting in all of these kind of fantastic positions and very proud of myself. And then I injured myself. Um, so I
Oh,
didn't go and see the doctor. I didn't dare go and see the doctor and tell him what I'd been doing. So instead, I I let myself kind of heal. But the benefit I'd felt just from that home practice was so significant. I'd practice yoga and I would cry, and all of this grief would just come out, and it needed to come out at the time. So I found myself a yoga teacher in rugby called Kailesh, and Kailesh was from India traditionally. I contacted her. I told her about my condition. I told her that I'd been told I shouldn't practice yoga, but actually I was really drawn to do it. And she just said, that's just their understanding of yoga. That's not yoga, that's their understanding of yoga. And she
I
said, come
see.
along to a class, see what you think. And you know, if it works, I'll work with you. So I went along to her advanced class, as you do, did this most crazy yoga class ever. Um, Afterwards, at the end, we did Beyonds, and it was like I'd never experienced anything like it in my life. I just felt like I was at home. It was like the whole room just kind of vibrated and reverberated with this most beautiful divine energy. And I sat there just completely overwhelmed and thinking, this is where I'm meant to be. This felt like home. Anyway, I got home and the next few days I could not move. I was in so much pain because it was such a tough class that I just worked
Sounds
muscles I did not know existed. So I contacted Kailash again and she said, why don't you come and do the beginners class rather than the advanced one? So that's what I did, and that was actually in 2016, so quite a while ago. And I just became
yeah,
absolutely hooked, and I would go to 2 free classes a week with Kailash. And then when it got to 2019, I said, I want to learn more about yoga because I want to know about the breath work that we do. I want to learn about mudras, which are like the symbols. I want to learn some mantra. I want to learn the philosophy. Can you recommend any courses? And she said, Sharon, do your yoga teacher training. And I said, oh, I can't. I'm not ready. I don't want to teach. And she said, no, do your yoga teacher training. You don't have to teach, but she said you will do. So I went along, she recommended a course. I started this 200-hour yoga course. We were halfway through when, of course, lockdown hit. So we all went online and continued anyway. And I qualified in, I think it's March 21. And since then, I've been
great,
a teacher.
great. So that was a long, not a long journey, but it's and then it shows also how you were consistent and what what did your teacher mean when she said to you the understanding of yoga?
So what I believe the consultant and the physio thought was it was stretching. That's what yoga was. It was stretching, and it was to improve your flexibility. Yoga is a spiritual practice. You know, the stretching is a side effect, and you don't have to stretch. So instead, she always said, never go to the full extent that you can stretch. Instead, we're going to work on strengthening. Instead, we're going to work on you holding poses and getting that stability in your body. Um, and yeah, I immediately, I don't take any pain medication at all now. So I came off all the meds, but immediately I sort of noticed that I wasn't getting knee pain anymore because all the my legs were strong and they were supporting my knees. Then I used to get a lot of rib pain and kind of pain around the shoulders and the shoulder blades. And because my core had got so strong, I wasn't getting any back pain anymore either. And very slowly, it was one thing after another until I realised I didn't need any medication anymore, which is just was
And
wonderful.
that's
It's not
great.
good to be on medicine long term.
That's
So,
great,
so yeah, I
Sharon.
think she
I'm
saw it
really
as a toolbox of things that you can use. It's not just. In fact, a lot of people that practice yoga aren't flexible, and they practice it because they want to improve their flexibility.
yes. Mm. And I looked into it because I'm knowledge is really limited about this subject. And how many different types of yoga are there?
Oh, Fulvia, I had a quick check myself, and honestly, I got to about 10, 11, 12. You have all the traditional lineages, which are like Ashtanga, Iyengar, Raja Yoga, Hatha Yoga, all of the very traditional ones which have their roots in India. And then you have other ones like aerial yoga or chair yoga or yin yoga, restorative yoga, which has come much more from kind of a therapeutic development more in the West. Things like vinyasa, which
I
is a very flowing kind of yoga. That again is much more of a Western sort of style yoga. So yoga, the word yoga actually, it's a very ancient Sanskrit word, and it means yoke, to bring together. And what it is representing really is to bring sort of the mind, the body, and the spirit together in one practice. So actually, there is even an argument that you could say going for a walk in the country and drinking everything in, being one with nature is yoga. Yoga is more of a kind of a mindset than an actual physical practice that we do.
I see. Okay, thank you, Sharon. Which which type of yoga do you practice? What is
So
your
the one that I teach has its roots in Hatha Yoga, which is very much about the postures. So it's very stripped back, and it's looking at postures. So you might do warrior pose or downward dog or all the ones, and you'll hold them for a little while. You'll have a look at position of your body, make adjustments if necessary. So it's quite a simple and straightforward type of yoga. I don't do any flowing yoga. That's not good for my joints. I need to be able to kind of stabilize and really work on the muscles. But I also enjoy yin yoga. Yin is when you go into a pose and you don't use any muscular effort. You allow yourself the gravity to kind of draw you down, and you'll stay in a pose for maybe 5, 6 minutes. And it's so meditative. It's really beautiful space to be in. So when I teach, my classes are kind of a mixture of both, but I come
I
very
see.
kind of somatic mindful approach. So for me, when I'm teaching people, it's very much about getting out the head and getting into the body. So it might be that we're doing a warrior and I'm getting them to focus on that connection of the feet against the ground beneath them. So they can really kind of experience the energetic sensation of the grounding as well, because there is an electrical pulse that comes up from the there's kind of an exchange there, but also just feeling into the toes. Most people spend all their time in their heads, so to actually get them out their heads and in their bodies and listening to what's happening um, is, I think, is just one of the many benefits of yoga.
Oh, that's great. Sorry, Sharon, I said practice instead of teaching.
It's all right, don't
Sorry.
worry. Don't worry. I mean, I do. I have a little home practice. I do like my own home practice, and I work very intuitively. So I'll just get on my mat and I'll just not even plan what I'm going to do. I'll just move in ways that feel really good and what I need to do on that particular day. Um, and when I'm practicing by myself, I might be a little bit more flowing with my style as well. Or I might just get into like a child's pose and stay there for 10 minutes. It just depends on how I feel on the day.
I see. I see. Thank you. Um, I guess you answered already this question, but anyway, if you want to expand, what are the benefits of for those who are not familiar um, familiar with yoga, or what would be the benefits for them being
Oh, there's so many benefits. Here all day. So when we've got the physical benefits, a lot of people have this idea if I'm going to exercise, it needs to be fast. I need to get my heart rate going. But actually, the strengthening and the kind of stability that you get from holding a pose, maybe for even just 30 seconds, can be incredibly challenging. So you get a lot of muscular strength, you get a lot of core strength as well. If you're maybe getting a little bit older, the balancing that we do is so beneficial, because actually, if you feel yourself starting to fall, which I used to be a real big faller, you just right yourself, because you're used to standing on one leg and kind of feeling that wobble of your ankle, so it doesn't throw you off. You right yourself. Then you've got all of the mental aspects to it. So it's for an hour, you get out of your head, you leave all your troubles behind, you come onto the mat, and it's just a space where you're at one with yourself and your body. There's no competition. If you want to, in my class, if you want to spend half the class just lying on your back looking at the ceiling, if that's what you want to do today, then you're very much allowed to do it. I really teach agency as well, because we get so used to being told what we've got to do, when we've got to do it, how we've got to do it, that um, we kind of forget how to make these decisions ourselves, or we always feel if somebody says I've got to do it, I have to do it. Whereas actually listening to your body and actually knowing what you need today with the skill set to be able to do it is so empowering for people. So quite often I'll have people doing their own little thing at the back. I'll always check in. I'll say, "Are you okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah." And then I'll leave it to it. And it's quite liberating for people as well. So there's that, and
Yeah,
then of course there's a
I
spiritual aspect as well. So that's probably one of the most important bits, and I've nearly forgot to mention it. So, I mean, yoga is a spiritual practice. You can find some classes where all of those elements have been stripped from it, but I find that I, for me, I don't find that very authentic, and I feel it's a little bit cultural appropriation where we completely strip something off their roots. So I always try and bring a little bit of spiritual knowledge as well into the classes that I teach, and hopefully people take a little bit of that away with them as well. We always have a group namaste at the end, so it's not just namaste to the teacher, but it's namaste to everybody that's there. And yeah,
that's that's great. Do you have do you have at the end of the class a little discussion with your group, or they share what they what they felt?
sometimes I might just ask them. Usually by the end, they're all so zenned out. They just are in sort of a little bit of bliss, and I leave them there. Um, but I do have a habit of kind of going off on a little tangent halfway through the class if somebody asks quite an interesting question, or gives a bit of feedback. But most of the time, people by the end, they don't want to come back into their heads. They want to just stay in this beautiful energy that we've
Yeah,
created. So I leave them there.
yeah, and that's great. Thank you, Sharon. Um, Sharon, you teach meditation and I guess mindfulness as well. Um, can you tell us what is mindfulness in a simple, simple words, so we
Absolutely.
can grasp the concept?
Mindfulness is really a practice, and it can be a practice during meditation, or it can just be a practice that you do throughout your life, which is trying to stay in the present moment. And the second thing really is just allowing yourself to feel, think, um, be however you are in that moment. So it's just that space to actually, if you feel emotional and you want to cry, you recognize it, and you just allow that kind of emotion just to be free within you, and that's quite a mindful practice. It's taking in all the details as well. If you're going for a walk, it's stopping and looking at the colours, or listening to the birds, or feeling the wind on your face, or the rain, whatever it might be. It's just anything that keeps you kind of rooted in that present moment, and very much um, at one with yourself. Is that simple?
Thank you. Yeah, Th-
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's important, how important it is to live in the present moment, and how could be, you know, uh, not good for us, for
Mm.
living in the past, or living, being anxious for the future.
So our brains are quite wonderful in many ways, but they also have a habit of jumping back into the past and going off into the future. So I can give you an example. So I used to be, if I ever had to go on the motorway, about a week before I knew I was driving on the motorway, my brain will go into the future as to all of the potential problems that may well happen. I could break down, I might run out of petrol, maybe I'll be hit by another car. And then it goes from that point to, if I'm hit and I'm in hospital, what happens? Who's going to let my family know? Who's going to make the decision if my life support has to be turned off? And the brain will go from something very simple to a real extreme, and then I'll be sitting there
Yeah,
because the body doesn't realize that it's something that the brain has conjured up. And the
yeah,
brain conjures it up because it's trying to keep us safe. So it's trying to keep us safe so that we can make a plan. That's what the brain is doing, but it kind of catastrophizes everything. It goes to the extreme. My body doesn't recognize that it's all being created by my brain. So I will start to feel real anxiety that used to show up in heart palpitations and feelings of sickness, in like kind of that sense of impending dread, all of those kind of things that I would then be suffering with maybe a week before I have to make this trip in my car. And then I get in the car, and in that moment, as I'm driving, I'm fine. So I've done a whole week of worrying for something that
yeah.
never happened. And this is where actually
It's,
mindfulness and staying in the present, what can we do with the past? So if we know that something is coming up, excuse me, it could be that we've got to have a difficult conversation with somebody. Our brain will go immediately back to a situation where we've had a difficult conversation before, but it won't just necessarily go to a straightforward one. It will probably go to the worst difficult conversation that you've ever had. And then you start reliving that. And again, your body doesn't know that it's a memory. So again, it will bring in all of those fears, and you might suddenly find that you might even have a trauma response. You might find that you're having panic attacks and you can't relate it to what it actually is. So again, not thinking about the past, not going to those worst case scenarios, but staying very grounded in the present moment is um, beneficial not only to our minds but also our bodies, because we're not putting our bodies through any of this kind of emotions, panic, fear unnecessarily.
yes, it's
Unnecessarily.
famous
Yes,
fight or flight response.
absolutely. So our brains are
And
very intelligent. They're trying to keep us safe,
yeah,
but they also over massively, and it gets us into a lot of trouble. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners will perhaps recognise something of that in themselves, maybe, because I know that I used to do it, and it would limit my life because the fear of going and doing something was so frightening, when actually the reality of it was fine. In fact, I usually had a good time when I finally did it. So yeah, staying grounded in
yes,
the present through activities like yoga, that can be very beneficial, but also going out in nature, listening to the bird song, looking at the flowers. When you're having your cup of tea, don't just knock it back, but actually feel the warmth of the cup, feel it as it comes, the china against your lips, the hot on the mouth. All of those kind of details really keep us grounded very much in the present. And then that means that we are enjoying the moment. So we're able to enjoy the moment and not live in the fear of the future or the dread of something that's happened in the past.
that's great, great answer. Thank you,
You're
Sharon.
welcome.
Yoga, meditation, and mindfulness. What? Is there a link between the three practices?
Very much so. Um, do you know there are some yoga poses that I could put you in, Fulvia, and you would not be able to think about anything else because you'd be that much pain from trying to hold this position, and all your muscles are going to be working, mind is going to be completely blank. But it is, all jokes aside, it is this practice of getting into the body. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm not 100% sure of the stats, so please don't take this as accurate, but it's something like we live about 90% of the time in our head, maybe even longer for some
Yeah.
people. And some people, you could say to them, what sensations are you feeling in your feet? And they won't feel anything, and they can't even understand what you're asking them to. Now, our bodies are so intelligent, they talk to us all the time. But if we're always in our heads, we don't listen to it. You know, we're not listening to our bodies. Then what happens is that, first of all, the body will whisper something to you. So if we're not listening, we don't hear it. Then it will start kind of talking a bit louder. So this might say you've got a little niggle in your back. You know, it will start to then be a bit of an ache. And you're like, okay, well, I'll take some paracetamols and I'll ignore it. And then maybe it comes even more, and it will get louder and louder and louder until you get to a point where you can't get out of bed because you've not learned to tune into your body and know what's wrong. So that's a real strong mindfulness practice of actually getting out the head and being in the body. I think it, yeah, it's very beneficial, very beneficial. And also, you know, we always have this practice an hour and a half, even 2 hours. At that point in time, you're so focused on what you're doing that it's you know, even if your mind starts to wander, I always say, watch your thoughts. You know, allow them to wander, but don't engage with them. So it's almost impossible to turn your thoughts off. So you allow your mind to wander, but you don't start back. You know, and when you do, you come back into the present moment and get back on the mat and feel into your feet or connect to the breath or whatever we're doing.
That's, that's great. That's great. Um, and tell us instead, this now we're going to how you became aware of spirit while, teaching and practicing yoga.
Yeah,
Because to
absolutely.
me, this is amazing.
Mm.
Actually, it's really amazing.
So I think my experience may be quite unique, but I don't think I'm the only one that's had this experience. But I'm not like a lot of mediums where they said I was aware of spirit from a child. I wasn't really. I was very sensitive, extremely empathetic, very creative. I have no memories of being aware of spirit when I was a child. I would have, growing up, had visitation dreams. You know, my granddad who passed would come and visit me in my dreams, but I always just thought it was a very real life dream. You know, I didn't give it too much consideration that it was mediumship. And I always had a kind of knowing about stuff as well, which we now know as claircognizance. You know, this kind of knowing that something might happen. I feel a lot of women are quite intuitive anyway, but no kind of experience with spirit that I can mention. So after I did my yoga teacher training, the first training I wanted to do was pranayama training. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, pranayama is breath practice. And we did a lot of breath work. And I was drilling every morning, and I mean drilling. You know, we had homework that we had to do. We had to get up with the sun, and we were doing all kinds of breath work. And about halfway through this course that I was doing, I started to wake up in the middle of the night, and I had this sensation of the most beautiful. I mean, it just felt like being swaddled in golden light. That's the only thing I can describe it of. But it was like every part of me was just tingling and buzzing, and it was just the most beautiful sensation. So I asked the tutor on the course. I said, "Do you know what this is?" And she was like, "No, but it sounds lovely. Enjoy it." And then I asked somebody else. I asked a couple of other people, "Do you know? Do you know what this experience is?" Because it was that profound. It was just pure, I have no concept of what it could be, or anything. And if you put it in Google, nothing comes up. It's just the most bizarre thing. And then I had, after the course had finished, I was still experiencing it all the time. It wouldn't go away. But it was beautiful. So it was like I didn't really mind. And then I had my first ever reading, believe it or not, and I think it would have been. I'm just trying to think. I think it would have been in the summer of 2021. I think it was. So it's not that long ago, really. I mean, 4 years ago. Um, and I had a reading with a wonderful medium called Claire Merriweather, who's in rugby. And she was just, I went for a psychic reading because I didn't quite know where my life was heading. I had this yoga certificate, but I didn't know what to do with it. There was lots of stuff going on. And out of nowhere, my nan came through, and she was so spot on with her evidence. I was blown away, absolutely blown away. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is, there's something real here. There's something like, there's no way she could have known what she was giving me. And at the end, she said, have you got any questions for me, Sharon? And I thought, oh, I've just got one actually. I said, I've got this really strange experience keeps waking me up at night. And I explained it to her. I said, do you know what it is? And she just went quiet for a moment, and she went, Spirit have just told me it's them and they want to work with you. They're making you aware of them. And I was like, oh, okay. And she said, look, no pressure, but actually in a couple of months' time, I'm starting a beginner's mediumship course. And you're very welcome to join us. In fact, I think you should, because, you an ability and you should be developing it. So contact me then and we'll get you on the course. And I contacted her, and the beginners group was on a night I couldn't do because I was teaching meditation. So she goes, do you know, she said, I'm going to put you in the advanced class. I think you're going to be okay. And I just went in this kind of class with all the advanced students. It was online. I was looking at everybody. We went straight into doing like small groups of demonstrating. And the lady who was in charge of our group, she said, Sharon, do you have anybody with you? Can you say? So for a moment, I kind of closed my eyes and I connected to that energetic field, is how I would describe it. And I really all of a sudden became aware of someone's grandma coming in. And I got little kind of clairvoyant images coming in my mind. So I shared it. And to my amazement, someone could take it. And that must have been September 2021. And since then, I've been a
yeah,
bit fast tracked. So I'm on a fast track scheme. And I really do feel
that,
that the yoga and the spiritual work, it just helps with that. I just think it's really so beneficial, because we're all energy.
yes,
We're frequency, we're vibration, So if you're able to expand that energy field of your own, and you're very aware of how you feel, then when you have some other energetic being coming into your auric field, you recognize it is not you. Okay, so who is it? And then I can feel into it, and I can recognize certain characteristics, and then they just come and blend with me, and it's very beautiful. It's very beautiful.
it is. And I suppose these practices from yoga, mindfulness, and meditation are all practices that help to quiet the mind a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So our, the left brain does
Yeah,
is not so
busy,
intrusive.
intrusive,
That's
absolutely. To
that's great.
recognize if you practice mindfulness and you sit regularly, one, it's a discipline. You're disciplining yourself, um, and you get to it sits really nicely with being in the power, because if you can sit, then you can expand and hold the power as well. But also, you become if you listen and you allow your body to express what needs to be expressed, you know what your emotions are, you know how you're feeling, you know what your images are, and you know how to really kind of turn the mind off and quieten it down. So when I am working on platform, I can feel spirit coming in. And then when I feel an emotion, I know it's not my emotion. So then I know that the emotion I'm feeling belongs to the spirit communicator. And then when I get an image in my mind, because my mind has gone so quiet and it's almost like a blank screen, I know that image is being impressed on it. So it's all kind of, like I say, it just gives you almost like a blank canvas to work on and to recognize what's mine, what I own, what somebody else's. And again, when you're working psychically with somebody as well, you can immediately feel into their emotions, their lives, you know what's happening. And it's from that kind of place of stillness within the self that you're able to do that. Because if you're stressed and you're busy and your mind is full and you're overwhelmed and you're using maybe and it's no judgment, please. I promise I'm not judging anybody here. But if you're using cigarettes or alcohol or anything else to kind of numb the stress, um, it just becomes very overwhelming at times, and
Yes.
it then is very difficult to it's not impossible because I know some amazing mediums that like to have a little drink and a fag. So no judgment, they're amazing mediums, but it's a different way of kind of managing their stress and overwhelm and everything else. So it's a bit of a healthier way to do it, I guess.
I see. Um, Sharon is also a mantra teacher. When she told me, I am also a mantra teacher, and I was jaw dropped there because it's the first time that I meet a mantra teacher as well. And can you tell us more about it, Sharon?
Yes, absolutely.
What
Well,
is a mantra? How
I mean, I just fell in love with mantra when I first heard it. So, the word mantra actually is a Sanskrit word and it's made up of the two syllables. So, you've got man and tra. Man means mind and tra means tool. So, it's a tool of the mind, but it's so much more than that. So, a very basic kind of approach, you can use a mantra and it can be really simple words. It doesn't have to be Sanskrit, it could just be something that you repeat, and sounds of repeating it that actually distracts your mind from getting distracted. So it's one way to go into a meditation where you can use something to keep that point of focus and stop it from wandering. That's that's just one of the very basic kind of advantages of it. And some people can't meditate, but they can sit and do mantra, and they get into the same space through the repeating of um,
I see.
a short sentence. But then the wonderful thing about Sanskrit is these are words that are thousands of years old. They're ancient words. There is energy within these words. There's something really sacred about them. They were originally they would have been taught just by voice, and it would have been from master to student, and the student would have always been a man because women weren't allowed access to such things. I'm sure we did our own thing back then anyway, but in the tradition it would always be um,
Yeah,
master to teacher,
passed
but
down from the
the magic in the words would be passed down as well. So they became kind of like these beautiful little energetic formulas almost. And in Sanskrit, a lot of them relate to deities. So you have ones to Shiva, you have ones to Ganesh, you have ones to Kali, to Saraswati, to Lakshmi. She's one of my favorites because she's a goddess of abundance. So within the words that you're saying, if you say them correctly, and it's so tricky to do it, but you even have the tongue will go in different areas and there's a proper pronunciation. And you create this kind of connection, this magical connection with the divine through these words that you're speaking or you're singing. And you can kind of draw energies into your life. So if you do want more abundance, if you find that maybe you're short of a few pennies and you need a little bit more kind of wealth coming into your life, you can work with Lakshmi. can work with that, the goddess energy of Lakshmi. And I've brought them down so you can see, but you get like a little mala bead. There's
Oh, yeah.
108 beads on there. I don't know if you can see. And you just hold them in your hand like this, and you just will repeat a little mantra to match Lakshmi. If you've got a problem in your life that you want to overcome, you can use Ganesh because he's known as the remover of obstacles. So one for Ganesh is Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. So you'd go Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Next one, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. And you would keep going. And when you got from the fluffy bit back round again, you know you've done your 108, which is a sacred number in yoga and other sort of esoteric religions. And then what you find, if you're really energetically sensitive, is you can feel that energy coming in. And it's just the most beautiful thing to just sit in there. So you don't have to even, you can see how passionate I am about this, can't you? I get so
Yeah,
excited.
no, I know, because
But you don't even have to
when,
have anything complicated like that. The best and easiest one that's accessible to everybody is just Om, AUM, Om.
yeah,
And the Om is like the primordial sound of the universe. You know, in the Bible it said about the gods that, you know, and the word is, I can't remember, that's embarrassing, isn't it? But it's like the hum of the universe that you're doing here. And it's made up of the three letters, the A, the U, and the M. The A represents awakened state of consciousness, the awakening. Then
yeah,
I think it's then the dreamlike state. Then it's the deep rest state. And that's so the U is the um, dreamlike state. The M is the deep rest state. So you're going through the stages of consciousness. At the end of the word Om, you'll see there's a little dot, and that stands for
yes,
transcendence or silence. So you do an Om, and the Om, the A comes from the bottom of the belly, and it comes all the way up, and it goes Om, and then there's a silence.
and you can, when you,
And even if you
when you,
don't do it yourself, you can get beautiful recordings on YouTube of just like the Buddhist monks doing it. You know, it's absolutely beautiful and it's a really wonderful way to meditate. So it doesn't have to be complicated, but it really is the best thing I think about Om is it raises your vibration. You know, there is actually scientific evidence where they can
yes,
see the vibration of the person practicing the Oms is changing. So, you know, if you do
yes,
nothing else before you get ready to go on platform, if you're demonstrating, sit and do a few rounds of Om and get your vibration kind of expanded. And then you'll find that spirit will be able to come in because you've raised your vibration, so it's less effort for them to come and kind of join you and come into your space. So yeah, mantra I think is just it's just a beautiful practice and so much out there, so much to practice out there.
and I remember when we were at the college, I listened to Sharon singing a beautiful song in Sanskrit. I mean, it was absolutely um, beautiful, beautiful.
Actually,
Um,
it was a very
so
special night
bless.
that night, wasn't it? When we were in the sanctuary at the college.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
Was really nice, really nice. Um, um, which of the among the practices this that you teach, which one would you recommend? All of one in particular, or the three of them, or four of them? What is your?
I mean, I think they all
I
go so
always ask
beautifully. They all go so beautifully
you.
together. I wouldn't want to separate them. I mean, a lot of people will think they can't do yoga because maybe they've got bad knees or bad hips or anything that kind of means that they maybe don't have that kind of movement or range of movement. But there's so many wonderful chair yoga classes that actually there is really no excuse not to practice. So you've all been told. Um, but to me, I think I was saying this to you the other day, Fulvia. Actually, the mindfulness kind of sits around it all. It sort of wraps around the whole of the practices. But the movement, so the asanas, the postures that we do, is a way to get stuck energy in the body moving. So you're moving the energy
Yeah,
that's already in the body. So if you imagine it's almost like a garden hose and it's all tangled up, the movement of the yoga is untangling the garden hose. Um, and then you've got the pranayama, which is a breath work. So that actually means sort of prana is another word for energy. So through our breath work, through these particular practices of breath, bring in energy prana into the body and we're expanding it. So the word prana actually means the expansion of this energy. So what you're doing then is you've cleared out all the old energy, all the stuck energy, all that stagnant kind of water, and you're turning the tap on and you're getting a fresh supply coming in. And then to me, the mantra is like putting the sprinklers on, or it's just kind of, or maybe almost like dropping a pebble into a well of water is what you've created the right environment then through the moving of the stagnant energy, the bringing in of the other energy, and then through the mantra, you've got this kind of ripple effect of energy. It's bringing the beauty into everything, I feel. So I would definitely say all three, sorry. um, but any really any that you're drawn to. So people might feel a little bit oh, intimidated by something like a mantra practice. Doesn't have to be intimidating. In rugby, we've got a beautiful kirtan. A kirtan is collective singing. So we've got a kirtan community in rugby where once a month we all come together. People don't have to sit in the floor, they don't have to sing, they can just receive, and we share some of these songs as a group. And it's just beautiful. And I'm sure that there's probably these kind of community singing groups across the world, really, that people can go and join.
yeah. I've noticed as well that more and more people are gathering together, to sing.
Mm,
Also, also singing is a way to raise the energy,
yeah.
and to release it as
Mm.
well. Um, yes,
And
it's also,
it doesn't have to be Sanskrit, just singing. One of our favourite ones in Kirtan is Amazing Grace, and that's just beautiful. Just bringing that energy, rising the vibration. I always, one of my pet peeves is if I go to a church and they say, "Oh, we don't do singing here." I'm like, "What? I need my songs. I need us to sing so we can just." And if you think back to the olden days, in the early days of mediumship, they would always be singing, and it wouldn't necessarily be hymns either. They used to quite like sort of jollier, more upbeat sort of songs, wouldn't they? To bring in that
yeah, I
energy.
know. I really admire you because you're used to sing in front of people. If you remember, I pulled out because I'm so shy. I was singing on the chair, sitting on the chair, but um, I don't know even. But when I'm at home, I sing. I sing as
Fulvia,
well.
you won't believe me, but I cannot sing. Honestly, if you gave me, well, I never used to. I would be tone deaf, absolutely tone deaf. But chanting is something completely different. It comes really from the belly. It's coming from very deep down, and it comes up and it reverberates. And that divine
Well, I
connection, I think,
remember.
is what makes it beautiful.
Well, I remember you sang a whole song in Sanskrit, and you were not out of tone. The song was I mean, I could feel the song. It went beyond only the words, and so you're a good singer, Sharon. You're a very good singer.
But only because I've trained through the chanting. Before then, I would have been hiding behind the chairs, and
And that's
that's another benefit. It gives you confidence. It gives you confidence in your
yeah.
voice and being able to speak. You know, it really gives you. It's so great for the throat, you know, and just allowing us to be able to express ourselves sort of succinctly and clearly.
Last question, Sharon. Could you tell us a little bit what is the somatic what is a somatic counselor?
Yeah,
What a
absolutely. So
somatic
this is quite I really want one of the things I was quite aware of is that when I do one-to-one readings with people, um, you know, people are coming and need just to be held a little bit more. So we never really know what's going on, do we? In people come in strangers sometimes. We'll do a 45, maybe an hour reading with them. We may bring up things about relationships or parents or jobs or a whole host of stuff because we're being given it by spirit. But then when they leave, we don't know their history. We don't know if they've got support in place when they go home. We don't know whether when we've brought something up, if it's going to be particularly triggering. And we're kind of, they're very much sort of passing through, aren't they? But we don't know, we don't want to leave people worse than when they came. So I really wanted to do a trauma informed course. That was what I wanted to do first of all, so that I could learn a little bit more about it and maybe help hold people better, and also perhaps offer a little bit of aftercare. But the somatic counselling was trauma informed, but the somatic counselling was really interesting to me because it was kind of what I've been doing on the yoga mat, is getting people out their heads and into their bodies. So usually, if you go in the UK, we have the National Health Service. Now, if you go and you're struggling, you'll either get offered, like I was, antidepressants or some other form of medication, or they will give you 6 rounds of CBT, which is cognitive behavioural therapy, which is all about the brain. When you suffer a trauma or whatever in your background, you know, whatever it is that's got you to the point where you're looking for help, the body absorbs it as well as the mind. So the body remembers it, it gets trapped in our bodies. And sometimes, depending on our upbringing, we haven't been allowed to express that when we're children either. So we've been told that our feelings, our thoughts aren't valid, you know, they're not important, it doesn't matter. So we shut them down and we become very numb. Somatic counselling is allowing people to um, think. It doesn't have to be an incident from their past. In fact, it could be something that's showing up in their life right now, but actually allowing them to feel it within their body. So we do something called somatic tracking, which would be if you were my client, Fulvia, I would be saying, and you came to me because you were, let's go back to the car thing, you were nervous about getting in the car and driving on the motorway. I would allow you that space where you would bring up how that feels, you know, in the body, and then you would have that opportunity to actually explore that, you know, and release it. Because the body does this really impressive thing. It has a way of processing these things if we allow it the time to do it.
Yeah.
And it's only a short amount of time as well. I can't quite remember what it is, but we're talking sort of seconds rather than minutes. But actually, if you just allow those feelings to arise and be with them, the body will just dispel them on its own. So it's very much, it's kind of, it's, it's, it's allowing people to release the trauma that's been trapped in their bodies from neglectful childhood, past abuse, particularly anything that's going on in their life now, maybe school, growing up in a school where you were bullied, or a teacher was always telling you you were stupid or something like that, and it really kind of gets stuck in the body. So it's just allowing people to process that in a very safe and healthy way. So it's quite exciting.
Thank you.
And there's so
Yeah.
much more
No,
to that, but it would be, you'd have to do a year course to find out.
no, just to give those who are watching a
Yeah,
taster of it, and for those who might be interested, you can read at the bottom below myself and Sharon. That's Sharon website. And if you go on the website, on Sharon's website, you can read in detail what Sharon does and get in touch with her. Um, uh, booking a private reading, and if you live in the Midlands, Rugby area, join Sharon in her classes, because it's really worth doing that. She's an amazing person, and an amazing teacher.
thank you.
Okay, Sharon,
Thank
thank
you.
you, thank you very much for
Thank you for
uh,
inviting me.
thank you for accepting to be on the spiritual chat show this evening with me, and with all those who are watching the live, and uh, really grateful for that, Sharon. And I hope that this was another chat that brought more information about yoga, about meditation, about mindfulness, and a new subject that not everybody talks about, like um, mantra. So, uh, thank you, Sharon, again, and thank you to all those who were here watching the live. I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time with a new guest, and as usual, it's a surprise, new guest, new subject. Um, but I can assure you that also this guest is going to bring her and sharing her knowledge with all of you, as Sharon has just done. So, on behalf of myself and Sharon, we thank you, everybody, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time.